Hello, I'm Elgato and welcome back to the top 5 videos. Today I want to talk about the hardest items to use in Minecraft, that is survival / PvP Minecraft of course, because the funny thing about Minecraft is so many of the items are easy enough to pick up, you can just like immediately look at it and be like, the sword, you hit people with it, I guess there's some mastery in learning that, and the shovel, you hit blocks with it and just they magically go away. However, there are some items that are much harder to master because they have so much of like a, easy to learn, hard to master aspect to them that I think it'd be kind of fun to talk about the hardest to master items in Minecraft. So that's what I'm doing in today's video. Hopefully you'll enjoy the top 5. You can like it if you do like it because it helps out the channel and lets know you do like these sorts of videos and want to see more of them on the channel. So with that said, let's get straight into the 5th hardest to use item in Minecraft, and it's probably going to have to be ice, or really, I mean, you can argue any block, but I think ice has the highest mastery level because of the fact that it has the kind of slippery bounce to it. So again, obviously, it's easy enough to learn that like, oh yeah, ice in Minecraft, you get it by silk touching, any ice in the world, and then you can use it to have this kind of slippery effect, which makes you walk slower, but run a lot faster. If you don't know what I'm talking about, as you can see right here, when we've got this much, we walk a little bit slower than normal, but if we do some jumping over it, there's less friction, so you'll go much further. You can jump, instead of being able to jump like just barely 4 blocks, you can jump sometimes 5 blocks of this, which is much better, and it just allows you to go much further, much faster, and kind of get away from people. So that means that ice is one of the hardest to use items, because if you are in a chase situation, 1, the ability to have ice on you, but 2, being able to use ice just perfectly to get away from someone is a really tricky skill. But as you can see, if you do this just, if we just do this just right, then what we can actually do, so as you can see, I've messed it up just there, but if you do it just right, you can make it so you can place all these blocks, but it's almost impossible to be chased, because if someone's just jumping naturally, they'll miss one, they'll get trapped in one, and then you can get away from someone. And getting away from someone is such a valuable skill in so many parts of Minecraft that being able to use ice in this way is pretty valuable. To show what I mean right here, I'm going to go diagonally, and as you can see, I'm only barely landing from block to block to block, and following that pathway back is almost impossible for someone else to do, because they're not going at the exact same speed, at the exact same angle as I am, which makes it very tricky, especially if they're trying to, hit me with a sword, and they're like, oh, no, where are you at, and if they keep missing me, then you can get away faster than they can chase you, unless they can perfectly follow your path. Ice is this perfect block because it creates this barrier for someone following you, and that is why ice is the 5th hardest to master block in Minecraft, because again, it's easy enough to use, it's easy enough to understand the basic stuff, but being able to use it just perfectly, even in like, survival contraptions, is something that you're going to have some difficulty doing. So let's talk about the 4th hardest to use block in, item to use in Minecraft, which is actually going to be the Elektra, because the Elektra is a fairly recent addition to the game. You put it on your back in the place for chest plate, and again, like, there's also the situation of knowing like when is an Elektra worth using as opposed to a chest plate. If you're just about to fight someone or a bunch of mobs, it's worth having a chest plate too, and knowing when to switch in and out is a valuable skill by itself. But even when you start flying the Elektra, there's honestly like, again, it seems easy enough, like you just kind of glide towards the ground, but honestly, being able to use fireworks just right, being able to get the glide angles just right to conserve it is really tricky, and it's not helped by the fact that it's slightly different on every platform. Again, you'll notice right here, the way I'm flying is very slightly different here than it might be on, say, the console edition, because the Elektra is just wildly different on every platform you play it on. It's just it's a weird thing. It has like a lot of weird rules. The fireworks work differently, and trying to conserve your, your speed is something that's really tricky. A lot of people have different strategies for this, but the best one I know is to point down at about 40 degrees down until you reach max speed, then go up a little bit to like 20 degrees, and then just kind of follow it that way. And again, then you can, at the very end of it, you can get some height if you want to, but only if you're at the very end of your jump. Basically, knowing exactly how to use the Elektra is very tricky. Most people are using it wrong. Even right now, I'm, like in survival, when I think I'm using it perfectly, I'm still using it slightly suboptimally, because the way to use the Elektra perfectly requires really smooth, controller, mouse, whatever, but you need to have like really perfect operation of the controls. You need to make sure you know what you're doing right, and you need to understand the terrain you're trying to fly into, which is what, in my opinion, makes it so perfect. Also, when you do fire a firework, you can kind of take advantage of the fact that you're boosting to do some really cool stuff, like, again, circle around and circle up, and again, you can do some really weird cool stuff because of the fact that you are boosting, and yeah, it's something that you probably are not doing necessarily perfectly, and that is why it is the 4th hardest to use item in Minecraft. So the 3rd hardest to use item in Minecraft is actually going to be water, because it's got a similar kind of purpose. Truthfully, water used to be way more important back before the Elektra, but it still has uses to this day. So I'm talking about the water bucket, of course. I mean, like, not drowning in water is actually quite easy, but the funny thing about water that makes it so tricky is the fact that you can actually use it to save your life if you can do it just right. So what I mean by that is if you're falling to your death and you place water just before you land, you can actually avoid taking any full damage whatsoever from it. It's a really, really valuable thing. I think I might not have done it perfectly there, but my point being is if you can, let me show you a really much smaller height. If you just jump down and then you land in the water, obviously you'll land into water, you won't take damage, and it's just fine. The higher you fall from, the more important it is to place water, and the harder it is, because obviously you pick up more speed the faster you're going to hit the ground, which means that obviously you need to make sure that you don't die, which you can only really do by being really, really good at placing water before you die. Also though, the water is a non-aggression, tool, or a anti-aggression tool, because if someone's coming towards you and you're like, okay, I need to get them away from me, you can place water behind you, do like that, and then they're going to be pushed backwards. And again, getting through water is such a pain in the world that a lot of people don't know how to do, and they get kind of trapped by that. So yeah, water is a really tricky thing to master because it's a item you can use to save yourself from death. It's an item you can use to stop someone from chasing you. It's also though an item which exists just naturally in the world, and being able to deal with it is a very important skill, because if there's water around, placing something in there, say maybe ice from before, will actually allow you to jump over it and get past it really, really quickly. So yeah, that is why that's why water is one of the hardest to use items in Minecraft, because there's just so many use cases for it, and being able to use all of them is just such a tricky thing, because the fact that, again, it seems like it's just a standard thing, but it can only be placed in block spaces, and it takes a second to place, or like a half second to place. Okay, I just spilled that cauldron, my bad. But it takes like a half-second place, which is something kind of tricky to use. So there you go. There is the reason that water is so hard to use in Minecraft. But it's not the hardest item to use in Minecraft, nor is it the second hardest item to use in Minecraft, which in my opinion is probably going to have to be TNT. So let's go grab ourselves some TNT right now, because the funny thing about TNT in Minecraft is both as a PvP tool and as a survival tool, it's really tricky to quite master, because again, it actually, so curious what I mean by survival. Basically, if you want to make the most impact you can with TNT, you need to be using it near the surface or near dirt or near various resources that are actually going to be destroyed by it. So we place a TNT right here. I hate destroying my own world like this, but let me just show you. There's TNT being placed in some dirt. Look at the impact that makes. That's a big dent. But if we place some just over here, where it's just stone, in this random little hole, ignore the bedrock for now, but if we place it right there, even if we place it, like, again, fairly close to the dirt, the biggest impact it's going to make is the dirt. The stone is going to be destroyed just barely. And if we place another one, like literally right here, where there's almost no dirt now, you're going to see how we make the tiniest impact, because every single block in Minecraft has a different resistance to TNT. We destroyed something like 11 blocks there, as opposed to like 50 earlier. So the reason for that is blast resistances. Knowing when to use TNT, again, it's a skill you need to know how to do. The easiest tip is just use it on dirt, don't use it on stone. But also, you can use it on trees, you can use it on abandoned mineshaft, you can use it on all these various blocks, but you can't use it against obsidian, against these blocks, and just knowing when and when not to use it is kind of a tricky thing. But the way trickier thing, in my opinion, is using it for PvP, because a lot of servers, and also, I think Battle uses it too, basically, if you place TNT down, knowing how to get some with it is, again, it's a tricky task. So, let's say someone's chasing me right now, and I'm like, okay, gotta get them with TNT. Being able to get them to be exploded by TNT, it's not as simple as like, oh, place TNT, and they'll just run into it. No, what you have to do is you have to place your TNT, run, okay, so wait, I'll show you really quickly. Place your TNT, you want to light it on fire, run past it, and then you want to turn around immediately and try and knock the person back into the TNT. It's really, really tricky to pull off, but if you can do it, you can knock them back, you give them a sprint knock, they'll fall right into your TNT, hopefully perfectly in the middle, and you can one-hit KO people. That's right, if you can master TNT when PvP, you can one-hit KO people, even if you have no weapon. It's my favorite equalizer tool, because if you can just punch someone, do the knockback, get them in the zone, then, or if you have a knockback stick, you can knock them into the TNT, do 100% damage, go right through their armor, and just kill them in one hit. However, that's tricky, and that's why TNT is the second hardest to use item in Minecraft, because again, the explosion is semi-random. It's not perfectly random. The way it affects stuff is, again, seems semi-random, but it just takes a lot of learning, and being able to use it in PvP takes a lot of skill, practice, and I guess I would say balls, because you gotta be able to knock someone with your fist into TNT, but it's something you can do perfectly if you learn how to. So what is the hardest to use item in Minecraft then? Honestly, I'm gonna have to say it's the bow. So bear in mind, we're talking about Bedrock Edition here. On the PC, I feel like and even on the old console edition, sometimes, I think they changed it recently, my bow aim, I think it's pretty good. Like, I can hit people when I want to hit them. However, on this version, I have the hardest time firing arrows, and I used to think this was a bug, but it's been around for some time. The Pocket Edition had it too. I think it must have been a way to originally help people, like, compensate for, like, lack of aiming with bows, but right now, it seems almost impossible to hit anything you want with bows in Minecraft. Again, talking about Bedrock Edition, so just Minecraft, because if you want to hit this ball right here, if we aim at the exact same place, we haven't, changed our aim at all, you're going to see how, like, even at this distance, the amount of variation in your bows your arrows is fairly significant. Actually, not right there. These are all going in the exact same spot. But if you get any real distance between you and your target, you'll see the variation in your bow is fairly significant. And this is not new. This is on the PC too. It's to make things a bit more fun because your bow shot isn't going to be perfect every time. As you can see, there's a little bit of randomness. Like, we're not going for the same spot. But, like, look how big the randomness can actually be. It's like a full block size. Again, fine when you're firing at one block at this distance, but what happens when you're firing at more than this distance? Well, you fire a lot of arrows or you try and like do stuff, but the funny thing about aiming in this game is that if you want to go left to right or right to left, for some reason it takes a while before that stops affecting your arrow. So as you can see, like, I'm trying to go this way, but my arrow is still going slightly wrong, which is a really, really bizarre thing. So yeah, there's that. It's super, super strange. I don't entirely understand it. But then there's the final, layers of the bow thing, which is knowing which enchantments are good, like how good is power. There's knowing how to draw back your bow just perfectly before you fire. Again, so the pro tip is you do more damage when it's like, that's like the minimum damage, but just go like this. That's the bare minimum we can do. If we go like that, that's like a medium pull. And if we go all the way back till the animation is finished, we'll get way more damage. You can almost one-hit people with a fully drawn back bow. So knowing how to do that, plus knowing how to not be affected by this side-to-side aim, like you can see right there, it's a really weird thing. Plus knowing how to deal with the randomness of the bow, which seems like it's always against me. Again, that's just my opinion of it. Obviously, it's not just against Toycat. But the crazy thing about that, and then also on top of that, there's different types of arrows. Knowing the type of arrow to use, usually it's harming if you have the choice, but if you have like, weakness arrows, leaping arrows, and regular arrows, which ones do you use? But then also knowing exactly how to use each arrow, because right now, which ammo am I going to fire? You might think like, oh, it's not too easy to tell, and it's not. The way the way arrows are decided are if you have something in your offhand, then they'll fire that arrow. But if we have something in offhand that isn't the arrow, then it has to fire based on your hotbar order, which means it fires left to right. So if you want to fire your jumping arrows, you have to put them in an order where it makes sense. So for instance, you could do something like this, where it's like fire 2 leaping arrows, then fire a regular arrow, then fire your leaping arrows again. So as you can see, fire leaping arrows, then fire regular arrows, then fire your leaping arrows again. It's really crazy the customization you can do with a correctly organized hotbar, which means you can do something even more complex where you're like, okay, what if it's like 3 leaping arrows, for instance? So 3 leaping arrows, and then like 3 leaping arrows, and then back to the stack of them. So if you wanted to, you actually could do this. Look at this. I'm going to go like right now, replace the sword right now, and this means that you can do crazy setups. So you can be like, okay, harming arrow, harming arrow, harming arrow, then poison arrow, then, leaping arrow, so they get confused. I know there's all these options that you can actually have, and just the ability to actually know how to master that, have your hotbar organization on point, have your bowing aiming game on point. Again, if you look at some distance, it seems to me like there's just some amount of like, where are these arrows going? And that's while you're aiming perfectly straight. Being able to go on the move and do this stuff, it makes it a very, very tricky task. And again, that's why I think it's the hardest to master item in Minecraft, because it's hard enough by itself, then there's the arrow thing, then there's the aim thing, then there's the weird kind of like, I'm not even sure thing that just makes it the hardest to use item in Minecraft. That I know, I'm sure a lot of you in the comments are like, I can use arrows perfectly, so I can, or bows perfectly, and in that case, good job, you're better than me with the bow. So thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you all enjoyed it. Like if you liked it, share if you really liked it, and subscribe if you're new around here. I make videos like this one every single day on my channel, and if you subscribe, you'll see them daily on your homepage. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Bye.